Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I came across a story that I thought I would share with you guys. I'm going to link the news story down below for you guys to read for yourself. And this just really bothers me. This is the sort of stuff that we really have to be aware of within the fitness community, the health community, and in the supplement world particularly. So we had a couple that had helped start a nutritional supplement company at one time, it says, up in Canada. They had several children, and they were really, really big on natural remedies and just using herbs and everything to treat problems instead of using modern medicine, apparently. And this is exactly the worst case scenario of people with this idea, because it's not really true. But basically what happened, their 19-month-old son developed bacterial meningitis, and rather than go seek medical attention, even though they knew their child was seriously sick, they instead tried to treat him with, quote, hot peppers, garlic, onions, and horseradish. Yes, you heard me correctly. They tried to treat their child's meningitis with horseradish. I mean, Jesus Christ. To have that level of ignorance in first world countries today, it just blows my mind. Look, people, I get it. I get that Big Pharma doesn't always have our best interest in mind. I understand that these are big multinational corporations whose primary goal is to make money. They are for-profit businesses, and they are in the business of making money. However, that doesn't mean that most of the medications that are out there don't actually work. And I'm not talking about the stuff that's produced, all these diabetes meds and everything else that are made, and statins and all this stuff that are made to change people's, to basically try to repair the damage caused by people's terrible lifestyle choices. That is a hustle. That's when Big Pharma is coming in, because our lifestyles just suck. And they are capitalizing on it, but they're saving lives, but they are capitalizing on our really, really bad life choices by making, again, a lot of diabetes meds that aren't for type 1 people, for all these statins and everything else. This is basically profiting off of our stupidity and ignorance. However, stupidity and ignorance doesn't end there, because the thing is, they are actually making real cures too. They are making life-saving medications and drugs that in this case could have saved the life of this child. And these parents are ignorant. Rather than they took this black and white thinking that because Big Pharma does some things purely to make money, that none of their stuff works and that nature must produce the cures. Well, again, they're going back to this naturalistic fallacy that we see all the time touted in the fitness world. This whole idea that because it's natural, it must be good. That's a buzz phrase. Natural isn't always good. Mother Nature wants you dead at 35. If you look at historically, humans for tens of thousands of years, our species had an average life expectancy of 35. That's when Mother Nature wants you dead. Like 50% of children die before they finish, they reach like age 10, before they reach puberty or maturity, all through certain phases through history. Mother Nature wants you dead. Nature is not a good thing. It's not always kind to us. It is about survival of the fittest. And if you're too weak to make the cut, then you just die. That is nature. War is a force of nature. It is about culling the population out and removing the weak, or the weak philosophies, or the weak individuals. That's why we have always fought. That's nature. So when you go back and try to say, oh, nature must have all the cures, that's not always true. And just because they might exist somewhere in nature doesn't mean that you're going to find them, and it certainly doesn't mean you're going to find them by eating some herbs instead of extracting what they find in that herb that's really causing it and concentrating it. That's where a lot of your modern medicines have come from, as a matter of fact. Taking an herb, something could be something as simple as garlic or willow bark, and figuring out why these indigenous people seem to get some remedy when they chewed or ate these things. Find what's in it, concentrate it in a lab, and produce it at 20 times the strength it's found in nature at a high concentration. That is actually where many, many of our modern drugs and medications came from. We call them drugs, but they're just a concentrated extract that we've concentrated in a lab from some of these natural herbal sources, that we then test and make sure that it works in isolation when concentrated. And when it does, it's way better. It is massively superior to what is found in nature. But these people didn't do even that. They didn't go figure out what indigenous herbs might be consumed for bacterial meningitis, because they didn't know particularly their child had bacterial meningitis. They just knew he got sick, and they gave him a big pile of random herbs with no rhyme or reason, hoping it would work instead of taking advantage of the modern medicine available. And how does it get worse? Well, again, we show just the culpable level of ignorance when it turns out that the father, and this is the reason they hammered him even harder in court, apparently when the child stopped breathing, he didn't call 911, he called his father for help. And there we have it. There we have the big problem of this actual, not just understanding that, okay, hospitals and big pharma sometimes are just trying to make money, so you need to be aware of that, but they can still help us tremendously. These are the best cures that we have available. This is the best knowledge that we have available, even if there is other side motivation involved with it. It's your best bet, particularly to save your sick or dying child. And instead, this man of taking the middle ground there, the reasonable, sane middle ground, he went to the moron level extreme and just said, I'm going to not use them at all because they're just evil. I know my child is dying, but I'm not going to trust the medical doctors in the hospital. I'm just going to trust my father. He knows about herbs. The child then died shortly after. The child had stopped breathing. He was probably dead within minutes because he didn't get any medical treatment and because the father hadn't bothered through that time to take them to see a real doctor. And in this case, this person's ignorance and this reliance upon natural remedies and herbs and supplements killed his child, and he is now in jail, and his wife, I believe, is in jail too. She just got a much shorter sentence, and then they're going to be on parole after that. But his child is dead, and he is in jail because he couldn't take a sane middle ground and say, okay, modern medicine is still our best bet, but yes, there are problems. It's not perfect, and there are financial motivations and political motivations for a lot of what they do, but it's way better than any other choice we have. Maybe I should save my child's life. He didn't think that way. He said, I'm going to stick with these herbs because nature knows best. Let's just forget the fact that Mother Nature wants us dead at 35 and she kills half of children growing up. No, Mother Nature is good. And it's just absurd. It's this absurdity that we see as the other end of the fitness community. And that's the thing that bothers me with our fitness community. You get two extremes here within people who count themselves as fitness people who are really focused on it. There's extremism, two different types of extremism that develop. You have the whole bodybuilding gains at any cost, hardcore gym rat mentality. You have that whole extreme, which causes all sorts of dangers and problems and calls itself fitness. And then you have people who can sometimes deviate to the other extreme of the whole naturalistic cure, herbs, hippie, new age bullshit, who honestly think this stuff works, and it doesn't. We know it doesn't. That's why we have science to study these things, that sometimes they stumble upon the answer, and then we can use that to gather better data and make better cures, but it is a big shot in the dark, and it doesn't work anywhere near as well as the basic modern medicine that we have at this point. And it is, again, all this hippie new age bullshit. And it is just as bad. It is just as dangerous as that other extreme that splinters off from the so-called fitness and health world. And this sort of extremism is what we need to be aware of when we get involved in fitness. It's great to have a fit lifestyle. It's great to eat healthy. It's great to do these things. But when you get caught up in these extremes, just like with so many other things in life, extremism oftentimes leads to bad decisions. It oftentimes leads to, in the worst case, death and destruction. Well, we see that in the fitness world with these extremes. The whole gym rat gains at any cost. I have to look good. I have to look amazing or look like a monster or whatever it is. Mentality kills people. It destroys quality of life as well. And in some cases, you see the exact same thing with this whole holistic medicine, naturalistic cure thing of when you completely abandon modern medicine and modern science to try to hope that herbs will cure all your problems. This is what you can see also. It can also lead to death, and it can lead to reduced quality of lives because people will put up with medical conditions that they do not have to put up with. I'll repeat that. They will put up with medical conditions they do not have to put up with because they are so hell-bent on these herbs curing them. And when your children are at stake, your silly ideologies and ideas have to go to the wayside. If you happen to be a hardcore gym rat and you love lifting and you use steroids, for God's sake, don't put your 5-year-old toddler on Dianabol and put him under a squat bar. The same thing for the people who believe in a lot of this holistic medicine. At the end of the day, you better make sure that your child is okay and not do stupid things with them just because you choose a certain ideology and way of life. And a perfect example I saw the other direction, Brittany and I have some friends, one of her lifelong friends, her and her husband are vegan. We went by to visit them. We haven't seen them in a long time. They eat a strict vegan diet. They believe in that. But I looked over and they had their child eating, their little toddler, who's about 2 years old, was eating cheese and a little bit of dairy. They didn't have him on a vegan diet. Did they give him lots of nuts and apples and other stuff to eat? Yes. Did they touch the dairy themselves? No. But they understood that from a health and development perspective that a vegan diet could actually be problematic for their developing child. So they absolutely had their child consuming dairy along with all these whole vegan foods they were eating. And that's exactly what we need to see. If you choose one of these lifestyles, you have to have some common sense and reason. And that's what I saw with them. And it was something I appreciated and something I noted in our conversation with them. When it comes to particularly things like your children, and you get caught up in these bizarre fitness ideologies that are extreme. They're not always bizarre, but they are extreme. You need to make sure that they're not harmful to your children in any way. That's your responsibility as a parent. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.